Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, so Sunday morning, right? We're talking about prayer. I want to tell you a story. Last week, Sunday last week, we decided to do a special event on our center, and it had to do with the shootings in Parkland. So what we did is an event that was called Let's Talk School Shootings. The purpose of the event was not a lecture, it was not a standard talk, it was not a seminar, nothing like this. It was an event where we had the kids sitting up front, no parents in the back, okay? And we agreed on if the room gets full of kids, the parents have to leave. Okay, it's the time for kids to talk, and they're gonna bring their concerns, their emotions, their whatever they're feeling, and we're gonna deal with those with them right there on the fly. So we had special, we had three people in the psychology, educational business that were dealing with that. And we knew it was gonna be heavy because they were gonna bring their emotions, and their emotions, it was expected they were not gonna be anything very enlightening. So we had a group of 6 people full-time. It was a 2-hour event, full-time, 6 volunteers in the center, just doing prayer. That's it, to sustain a good psychosphere. And it was a beautiful and very light event for us in the main auditorium. But on the 6 people doing the prayer full-time, they were totally exhausted. They had to, they couldn't even leave and go home. They had to take their time to, to get back to real life. So that proves to us the power of collective prayer. It was unbelievable. On an event like this, everybody talks and everybody's happy. We talked about bad things, shootings and mass shootings, and it wasn't all that bad. So that for us, it was a live experience on how collective prayer has a meaning. If it has a meaning at the collective level, it does have a meaning at the personal level too. And that's what we want to discuss here today. We usually take this at the very conceptual level. Prayer heals, prayer is good, it brings well-being. But what's the mechanism? That's what we want to talk about today. This is in the Spiritist, in one of the Spiritist books. It's called The Mechanics of Mediumship, where Spirit André Luiz goes deep and explains why. It doesn't mention prayer is good. He explains why it makes us feel good to the cell level. So we're going to do some of that today. If you look at this magazine here, this is a mainstream magazine, of course, everybody knows. This is from 2003, so we're back 15 years now, okay? 15 years ago. And this is the cover of the magazine, How Your Mind Can Heal Your Body. Instead of 2003, if this thing was, let's say, in 1995, 96, 97, we would have a question mark after the word body. It wouldn't be an affirmation. It would be a question mark. But it wasn't. And that's a mainstream magazine. It's not a religious magazine. It's not a spiritual magazine, nothing like this. It's just a social publication, right? And it's a strong affirmation when it comes to a magazine of this magnitude. So it's an indication that things are about to change. Our perception of mind and body, how the mind controls the body, and all these things that science is still very reluctant about. It's in the works. So something is in the works. For example, the same people, science, that tells us there is no such a thing as mind controls the body, they are the ones telling us about the placebo effect. That's a paradox. How come placebo effect, meaning you give somebody a pill that has nothing more than like sugar or just powder and tell this person is going to cure what you have, and it cures. It's not the pill, it's the perception that the pill cures. So it's the mind in place. So it's paradoxical. Also, certain things, and we see a lot of these on the news from day to day, people consider in their last days in a hospital bed, and the parents, the family members are told, this is what we think it's going to happen, this person's not going to last too long, so get prepared, get ready, So usually the medical doctors or the hospital people will tell you that. So what happens is the family decides, for example, to go, let's say 8 people, 10 people, just go around the bed and put their hands together, hand to hand around and do a collective prayer. And the person gets better and leaves, and everything keeps going. We see a lot of these. So there's something more happening that, prayer heals, prayer is good. Again, we wanted to investigate that. The word prayer is very complicated because it has 2 different meanings. It means one thing for the medical profession, it means another thing for spiritualism, us being part of it. Or for example, in the medical profession, when you talk about healing, the general line of thought is, well, let's give some medicine to this person, to this patient. On the other hand, for us, it's not really that. There's some sort of imbalance in the energetic body. Something's not right. The perispirit is disconnected somehow. For them, when medicine doesn't do it, they go to the next step, which is surgery in a lot of cases. For us, there's no physical intervention like this. We don't do anything in the physical body. We don't work in the physical body. For them, they use what we call the reductionist model. Reductionist model is when you have, let's say, a car, okay, and you have to work on some part of the car. Let's say I take my car to the mechanic. I say, the car is not starting. Okay, I turn the key and nothing happens. So they're going to start eliminating. Well, it's not the window. It's not the tire. It's not the bumper. So they eliminate. They divide the car, keep dividing in pieces and parts to get to the problem. That's what we call reductionism. In our model, in the spiritualist model, there's no such a thing. Everything matters. Everything is connected. So it's a different approach. Reductionist model works with parts and pieces to the point that, for example, you go to a doctor and you have a problem with the liver, let's say, and he's going to attack the liver by giving you medicine. And that medicine is going to alter something else in the body. And they don't care because they're treating the parts and pieces model. They're looking at the liver without being concerned if that medicine is going to do some damage to the kidneys or heart or whatever. That's what reductionism, parts and pieces is. For us, we don't do this. Everything is integrated. Newton, when he presented his model for studying the universe, he studied the universe based on parts and pieces. And he was the one that introduced it to us, the reductionist model. Anything today in our society that uses reductionism is based on Newton's physics. Our classic medicine is Newtonian. It's not quantum physics. Quantum means you are one level, at least one level outside the regular material plane. So they treat the body, we treat the soul. So it's completely different avenues. And the word cure applies to both. How come if they are so 2 different things? So for us here in Spiritism, we need to understand what cure is. On the left side here, this is not cure. This is, to say the least, relief, well-being. But that's it. On that side, that is the cure. That is healing. Healing is in the soul, because if the soul doesn't get cured or healed, it's going to produce the same results again, because it's the source of everything. So in order to kind of put these 2 things in balance, we started about 10 years ago in our universities with a new discipline. It's called, most of the universities use this name, Medicine and Spirituality, which is trying to balance these 2 things. There's more than just cells. Cells don't make decisions. Cells can't do intelligent things. There's got to be an intelligence above the cell level that takes care of that. That applies to the placebo effect and all these things, and healing and praying. Okay, so it's difficult to talk about healing with somebody in the materialistic line of thought because they don't see things as we see. But still, to make clear, these are different things. The word means different things for us and them. Okay, how does it go? How is this thing, how do we break the cycle of producing diseases? How do we break the cycle? It all starts up in the mind. Our thoughts are not so great because of our level of evolution. So we keep producing these thoughts. It's not that we don't have great thoughts. We do. It's not that we don't do real charity. We do. It's not that we don't have unconditional love. We know what it is. But it's all fragmented. Most of the times, we're not in that. Then a couple of seconds, yeah, we do unconditional love with our kids, for example. On those 2 seconds, you forget everything. You're fully embracing that with unconditional love. But then it fragments. Then we go into something like this. So our thoughts produce a lot of trouble. These troubles have names. They're called moral diseases. So all the moral diseases that we have, I listed 3 of them. Of course, there's several. But revenge and rage and all these things, hatred, they are produced by our thoughts. They are fragmented. They're not great. Now this goes into our perispirit, gets carried over to the physical plane. So we are able to produce with those thoughts degenerative diseases. So I listed some of them here. Now the problem is, this is not a line like this only. We do feedback. So our physical body throws it back to our perispirit. How is that possible? Like this. I have a disease, let's just say diabetes, which is troublesome. Nobody would like to have that. But then, that was created because my moral thoughts, okay? And then I get that, then I rebel and I revolt. So that was created because my rebellion, because my line of thought, and I'm increasing that, I'm feeding back. I'm doing feedback here. And same thing, from the perispirit to the spirit, or to the higher level, our thoughts, we do the same thing. Because of the physical disease that we rebel, for example, or we revolt, okay, that will affect again our perispirit, which will make our thoughts keep doing the same thing. So I never break the cycle. It's like a cycle that's infinite. How do we break the cycle? We break this part of the cycle with knowledge. This knowledge that we come here once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, that's going to give us the knowledge to understand that we shouldn't do this. If I'm having a disease, if I'm having something in my body, I have to accept instead of going back and producing more thoughts, more negative thoughts. So I need to break that cycle. And knowledge will make me do that. How do I break the second part of the cycle? Prayer, because if I connect back to the bad thoughts that I have, I'm going to do it again. It's going to be eternally doing this. I have to break the cycle and synchronize my thought with something higher than this, not my morals, my thoughts, because they're not great. So that's how I break the cycle. So healing becomes actually a combination of these 2 things, knowledge and prayer. It's a combination of 2 things. One of them won't do it alone. We have to have knowledge and we have to pray. Okay, we have to concentrate on something higher, on a higher power. Okay, how does it affect when I do this? How does it impact us? The explanation, like I said, is in this book, The Mechanics of Mediumship. Unfortunately, it's a very, very, very technical book, and this thing is in the last 10% of the book, and people usually don't get past chapter 3 on this book, because it's very technical, deeply based on physics and electricity, and not everybody likes the subject, not everybody feels comfortable with, so like any of us, right? We have things that we like, things that we don't like, we don't understand well, so most people give up. So we're going to try to extract what matters for this particular topic, instead of going through electricity and all those things that whoever ever attempted to read the book, if you got frustrated, I understand that, of course. Here's something he says, okay? This is in a chapter called Equilibrium and Prayer. So here goes. Seen from afar, outside the black box, right? Human beings in the physical realm may be compared to travelers in a jungle of heterogeneous thoughts, meaning everybody's thinking one thing, including the discarnates. So it's a jungle, okay? Learning by means of rigorous exercises to find their own way to freedom and the exercise of self-discipline. So I'm in the middle of a bunch of thoughts, some good, some bad, some like mine, some completely different than mine, and I have to find my way. I have to this is what I want to be, this is how I want to concentrate on a higher power, and I have to be able to do this regardless of everybody else, regardless of the other thoughts. And that's the key to it. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. He knows it's not easy, right? André Luiz tells us that later on. They are mentally exposed to all sorts of psychic influences, as we know, so it is crucial that they educate themselves to control their impulses. Okay, so we need to control ourselves, growing morally and intellectually to improve their thought projections. So growing morally and intellectually is what's going to break those two cycles. Intellectually is the knowledge, morally is the prayer. So he's building a case here that we need to do this, we need to understand how it works. And he continues, concerning the health and maintenance of the physical body and the acquisition of knowledge, human beings can draw upon the advice of doctors, nutritionists, teachers, and various guides. And that's what we do. If you're sick, you're going to look for professional assistance. You're going to go look for a doctor, for a nurse, for somebody that can advise on your physical disease. Therefore, it is also natural for them to make use of prayer to gather inspiration they need to attune themselves to higher directives. So it's like this. There's a point where it's not working. I go to several doctors, several people in the professional field, and then I'm going to start praying because it's not helping. So we put prayer as a second option. Prayer is never the first, is the second option. So what he's saying here is this: we should use prayer more in our own favor. And there's another thing here. Let's say, for example, a team of doctors and nurses are in the operating room. They're going to perform a surgery on somebody else. So let's say 10 people, okay, among nurses and doctors, let's say just 10 people. They come from different belief systems, from different cultural backgrounds. It's a mix of people. They're just professionals, okay, working in the operating room. They're going to perform a surgery. There's nothing that prevents them to stop for 1 minute, for 30 seconds, and raise their thoughts and ask for help. It would matter a lot. That's what he's saying here. But we don't do this. We don't see that in hospitals, not here. Maybe in other parts of the world, but not here. That could help a lot because it's collective prayer. We're drawing a higher power into that room. We're getting more centered on our task that we're going to do. But we don't do that here. We should. Now look at this phrase here. In the circuit of forces established by prayer. So let's stop. What is a circuit? Circuit is something, it's a closed path. Circuit is a closed path. An electronic circuit is an electronic closed path. A Formula One circuit is a closed path. The guy comes, he leaves from here, he goes back to the same point. Circuit is a closed path. Circuit of forces. So he's talking about forces. Imagine this here. We would have, let's say, a lamp connected to the outlet. If I disconnect the lamp, the question is there electricity in there? What do you think? Think about this. Yeah. I disconnected the lamp. Is there electricity in there? No. No, because the circuit is not closed. The electricity is going to flow when I plug something in. Even if it's my fingers, I'm going to get... But yes, there's got to be something plugged to close the circuit. If the circuit is not closed, nothing happens. You can't get the lamp to lit if you don't stick it in. If you get close and say, well, let's see if it does, you won't do it because you need to close the circuit. So here's the phrase, in the circuit of forces, so in a closed circuit of forces established by prayer. So what is that? So now I'm closing the circuit when I connect with who? When I put the lamp on the outlet, who is the source? FPNL, right? That's what provides electricity. When I close the circuit with a higher power, who is the source? The divine realm. That's what I'm going to draw my source from. The lamp draws the source, the electricity, from FPNL. When I do this, I'm going to draw the source from the divine realm, and I'm going to bring it down. It's going to come down to me. So in the circuit of forces established by prayer, the soul not only predisposes itself to regenerate the equilibrium of corrupted or worn out physical cells. So now we're at the cell level. It matters to the cells. That's what he's saying. We're going to go back later. But not only this, but also reflects the enlightened suggestions of the higher order, discarnate intelligences with whom it is engaged. So when I do this, when I close the circuit with the divine realm, I'm going to start having influx of great information, good information. Can I close the circuit with an obsessor? Yeah. I just have to plug in. Is it going to be great? No, but there's a source, yeah. The obsessor is the source for that I'm going to draw from. It's a choice, it's free will. So when I go to the divine realm, I'm bringing from that source. I'm bringing stuff from that source. Okay, so I'm bringing the divinity, or whatever you want to call, but I'm bringing something from the higher power down. And he explains to us how this physical cell thing works. Here's what it says. It's through the influx of the renewing energies. So I'm connected. I'm bringing energy from the source. So the influx of those assimilating the rays from highest life, which it addresses. So when I connect, I bring these rays of higher energy. And that's going to come down to the cell level. That's what he's saying. Okay, so how does it work? What happens to the cell level? Because now it became interesting. It's very easy to come here and say, yeah, it's going to go to the cells, we're going to feel well. No, I want more. I want more, because we are at a stage in 2018 that we know almost everything about the cell, almost everything.
Yes.
But what happens in the cell? Okay, so let's look at the cell. In the cell, we have two things. We have the nucleus, which is the main part, and everything else. Everything else is called the cytoplasm. Okay, it's just the name it is. So nucleus and cytoplasm. In the cytoplasm, we have several organs. Each cell is like a full body. It has each cell breathes, has digestion, has excretion, everything. It's a full body. It just doesn't have intelligence. So all these little organs, they are called organelles. All these little organs have a function. They are what keep the cell alive. Two of them that we'll take a look at today are these two here, the mitochondrion and the centrioles. These are what André Luiz uses to explain to us what happens when I pray. So I'm going to start with the first one here, the mitochondrion. What are these guys doing there? First of all, these guys are those who generate power to the cell. They are the source of power to the cell. They pick up oxygen and chemical elements. They bring it in. These things go into the cell, to the mitochondria, and energy is generated. So they are the source of energy within the cell. Okay, so that's at the biological level. So we know this for years and years and years. This is not spiritism. This is just biology. Okay, so here's André Luiz, what he's going to tell us. He goes to the next level. Through this mitochondrion, okay, look at this, which could be considered accumulation of spiritual energy. All right, so hold on. So now I'm no longer in biology. I left biology. I left the classroom. Because of this, because it is accumulation of spiritual energy in the form of granules, ensuring cellular activity. The mind transmits to the physical vehicle where it fits. What is the physical vehicle where it fits? The body. The mind transmits to the body during the incarnation all of its states. Unhappy, happy, anything. So it's like this. Consider unhappiness to be on that corner and happiness to be on this corner. So everything in between. Wherever you are today, wherever you were tomorrow, 10 incarnations ago, wherever you're going to be 2 incarnations from now, this gets reflected in here, in this mitochondria. So you will look at this, look what it says here. Therefore, balancing or disturbing the energetic cycle inside the cell. So that means if I'm close to happiness, the kind of energy that's going to be in the cell it's going to be positive. If I'm close to unhappiness or bad thoughts or something like that, the energy that the mitochondria will produce is not good. So let's say, for example, I fought with somebody last night and I'm fuming. What kind of energy are my mitochondria generating? Bad energy. Are these affecting me or the person that I fought with? He might not even know. He might not even care. He's watching the game, and I'm here. It's only me. I'm the only source of I'm the only destination for this, okay? I created myself for myself. He continues. Human can, by their own happy or unhappy stage, right, boost or palliate the coloration of the program that will determine their route. That means I can boost my life. I'm going to follow a path here in this life. I can boost that or I can palliate. It's a choice. How do I choose? With my mental state. From unhappiness to happiness, anything in between. And it continues through these units called biophores or bioplasts. Okay? They are in the cytoplasm. So what is this? The energy comes into the mitochondria and it interferes in the energy that's going to be generated. So look at this. At the physical level, what the mitochondria does is it goes out, pulls in oxygen, pulls in nutrients, produces energy. André Luiz is saying it goes out, picks up oxygen, picks up nutrients, asks up there, what's your state of mind up there? If the answer is, I'm fuming. Oh, okay, so let's produce energy that's compatible with fuming. Here it is. I did a lot of charity today. I'm all the way up there. So when the question is, how you feeling? I did great charity work today. So the mitochondria are going to generate energy that is compatible with that state of mind. So the energy that's generated to each single cell is directly dependent on my state of mind. So when I'm in prayer, what am I bringing in? Great divine energy. So I'm going to generate something that is also divine and great. Okay? And there's more. There's another part in the cell that matters a lot. It's called the centrioles. These are structures, as you see here, it's like two little cylinders like this. They are 90 degrees. And there's a very nice story about this. There's a science author. He's called Jeffrey Saitnova. He wrote a book called The Quantum Brain. And he tells his story a little bit when he went to classes. He was a teen. He went to a biology class. He got interested in so he goes to school. That I think was in the 70s, late 70s. He goes to school, and the first time he looks at a microscope, the teacher said, well, you guys just, out of curiosity, just look at the microscope. So he was looking at the microscope, and the cells are duplicating, reproducing. That's what he was seeing. And he got kind of doubtful about what he was saying, because he said, well, so he goes to the professor and asks, and nobody knows the answer. He said, there are these little two things on the cell. Seconds before the cell duplicates, these little two things go up like that. The cell duplicates, so now I have this and these are the same. Okay? And then after duplication, it goes down again. So this will happen again later. The cell duplicates, these things go up, duplicates, it comes down. And this is a cycle. And he said, what are these little things doing there? So we don't know. We didn't know. So he devotes 30 years of his life searching for the answer. What are these little guys called centrioles? What are they doing in there? And then he writes a book. Again, he's a well-known in a medical profession. He's well-known. He's a researcher, scientist. And his answer is, there's only one explanation. When the centrioles go up, they're picking up spiritual energy. It's written in the book. I can give you the page if you want. It's written in the book. When I read this book, I said, this is serious. So I went to research his life a little bit. And yes, he was always into this thing. He spent 30 years of his life. So it's not that we don't know what these things are doing in there. It's just not generally accepted by medicine. And here's Andre Luis telling us about something else, right? About the ability that these chromosomes have to pull out information. Not the chromosomes, the centrioles. So here's what he's saying. The chromosomes, which are, look at the word, physio, psychosomatic. Physio means physical level, matter, okay? Psycho, mind. Somatic, in the body. So the chromosomes have connection, they have spirituality in them, okay? They share the physical body via the cell nucleus, and they share the physical body through the cell nucleus and the spiritual via cytoplasm. What does it mean? It means this. Let me explain in a picture because I think it's going to look easier. If you look at the cell, okay, like I said, you have the nucleus and everything else. The nucleus is where the DNA is. That's known. That's a known fact. What is this DNA there for? DNA is a lookup table. When the cell is going to duplicate, it has to duplicate exactly as it is. So it has to have a reference. The reference is a DNA. Oh, this is what I need to copy. So I'm copying. This is a new cell, which is a copy of this. This is what this DNA is for. When we think about DNA, we think about things like heredity, because it's a duplication. But that's not all it is. We found out that there is genetic material outside the nucleus of the cell. And guess where it is? It is in the mitochondria. Remember the little guys? So there is genetic code in here. The DNA is not only on the nucleus. The DNA in the nucleus works at the physical level. This is exactly as this, physical. Now, the cell, when you duplicate a cell, you don't duplicate the nucleus only, you duplicate the nucleus and everything else on it, right? The whole cell is going to duplicate. So to duplicate the nucleus, you look into the DNA. Now, how do you duplicate everything else? The cytoplasm. You don't look into the DNA. You look into the DNA that is in the mitochondria. And this DNA in the mitochondria is stored in these little guys inside the mitochondria. The original word in Portuguese is biophorus. They don't have a word for that, but most agree on bioplasm. This bioplasm are these units of energy that pick up the spiritual information. So you see, the spiritual information gets picked up by these little guys, these bioplasms that are inside the mitochondria. So cell duplication works like this. Nucleus duplicate, exactly the same. Cytoplasm duplicate. Let's look into the mitochondria and let's duplicate from there. So that means this. Let's say you have a particular cell here that's going to live for, let's say like a bone cells, for example, they last a long time, 7 years or so. So we have a cell that's in there, it's living in there, okay? 7 years later, it's time for duplication. It's time for this whole set get duplicated. So the DNA duplicates the DNA, so the nucleus is the same. Before duplicating the cytoplasm, there's going to be a question, what's your state up there? Okay, because it will not come, that does not come from the nucleus, it comes from the mitochondria. So the word is, I've been fed up for 10 years. Yeah. I've been in revenge mode for 20 years. So that energy is going to go to your bone cells now. So is that true duplication? No, there is no such a thing. There is no such a thing. There is no true duplication because our state of mind is always changing. If I change it for worse, my body gets worse because every new cell gets that imprinted in it. But when I go to prayer, what happens? It's a lot better. So the duplication of the cell on that side is static, nothing happens. And here is dynamic, depends on my state of mind. That side is only material, this side is spiritual. It depends on me, depends on my thoughts, it depends on my mind, it depends on how I'm centered. So when I do duplication, if I'm in general a person centered on prayer and I do prayer on a regular basis, what are the chances of having a better cell? Much more than if I don't. So people in prayer all the time, they don't get sick. Why not? Because the cells do not deteriorate. They die of old age. They don't die of degenerative diseases. Because Andrea Luiz is explaining to us why. It's still a choice. It's still a choice. It depends on us, okay? So prayer is the loftiest touch of induction. Is the highest class of energy that I can bring into my cells. Prayer. So if I want to do good things to my own body, if I want to have better cells tomorrow than today, oh yeah, get in prayer. Okay, and he continues, prayer-focused mind may be compared to a starry flower opened before the infinite in order to absorb its life-given dew of life and light. So I pick up the life and light of the divine when I'm in prayer. And look at this. The divine rays emitted by sanctifying prayer. So let's stop here. So there's somebody praying, right? The divine rays emitted by somebody who is praying. Who prays? I pray or God prays? So it's talking about me, right? So I'm the one praying. Okay? So the divine rays emitted by me when I pray. Hold on. Divine rays? That's what he's saying. So when I pray, I am emitting divine rays. Somebody said, you are God 2,000 years ago. If I'm God, I'm able to emit divine rays. They might be shy away a little bit. They might be hidden somewhere. But it's there. It's like the electricity there. If you don't put the lamp, potentially there's electricity there. It's just not, the circuit is not closed. When I close the circuit, I emit divine rays. And I become God for that little, a part of God, part of the divine for a little bit of time. So the divine rays emitted by sanctifying prayer are converted into high levels factors of effective and definite cooperation in the healing of the body. And now we know why. Because when I connect, I receive good influx that comes into my bioplasm, in the mitochondria, in the cytoplasm, in the cell, and a new cell is formed with a better energy in it. So that's the renewal of the soul in the enlightenment of the conscience, as it says. All elevated prayer is a source of creative and vivifying magnetism. And anybody who cultivates prayer, anybody that excludes who? No one. Okay? Anybody who cultivates prayer with the proper balance of sentiment gradually becomes a radiating focal point of divine energies. So I keep praying, and I keep praying. I do this on a regular basis. It doesn't mean that it's 24/7. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean that I have to become a monk or something like that. No. It's just we have to automate the process. Praying for us is very fragmented. I pray when I need. I pray when somebody asks. It's very fragmented. It's not automated in our perispirit yet. But when it is, and if we make the effort to get to this level, then I'm going to start irradiating divine energies because they're already inside. I just don't close the circuit very often. Living currents flow from within each intelligence and are projected into this energy halo, structuring its aura. So my aura is formed if I'm in prayer all the time. If I get this to be in me all the time, my aura is going to have the divine in it. It will have something from the divine realm. And I'm going to be overall a better person, feeling much better. So well-being is always going to be with me. Like I said, people like those that pray all the time, they don't get sick. They don't sneeze. It's unbelievable. They don't sneeze. Not even that. Prayer is the basic means of the inner renewal. Now we know why. By which divine understanding descends from the soul of life to the life of the soul. So I bring that down, and that lives in me. All right, 4 thoughts so we can take home today. Prayer helps shape a new reality. What do I mean by this? So I had a fight yesterday with my boss. And I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna be such a weekend because I fought with him. I'm gonna have to wait until Monday to tell him this and that and that. And I'm playing that on my mind, okay? That's my reality. at this point. It is reality because the brain is feeling it and making the body take that. For example, adrenaline, if I'm very, I want to, hitting, the adrenaline will run. So it will affect the functionality of the body, okay? Now, when I go home and say, oh my God, I had this fight with my boss. Let me review this thing. What happened? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he was wrong. But yeah, well, he could be wrong because I could be wrong too. And you see, if I change my mood, if I change my attitude towards that, I'm not going to have the weekend that I could potentially have with bad energy on it. So I can shape a new reality just by concentrating on a higher power. Because my cells, my physical body is going to be living a different reality. It's a choice. It's called free will. We spoke about this in the beginning. The power of the collective prayer. Okay, that's how we open today. Healing and diseases are processes. They are not punctual events. So you don't get sick like this. We get sick like this? No. It's a work in progress that lasts 12 incarnations, 25 incarnations. Who knows? It's not punctual. And so, cure or healing is not punctual. If it takes me that long to make all this damage, it will take me a long time to offset that damage. So it's not punctual. So Tylenol doesn't do it. Tylenol might give me relief, not healing, not cure. Okay, it's a much more complicated process. And lastly, this is also not a paradox. Most people wait to be healed before saying a prayer. So they are in hospital beds, they are getting sick, they are sick, and they go, oh, when I get out of the hospital, when I'm good, then I'm going to do a thanking prayer. It's the exactly way around. The prayer has to come first. If it doesn't come first, healing is going to be a challenge. Very difficult. So that's what I wanted to bring to you today. If you have the opportunity to read the book, if you can bear with the book, because I know it's difficult. I know people not in the technical area have a hard time. The mechanisms of mediumship. Okay? Thank you very much. If you have any suggestions.